And hey there, it's me, Mudlink, and welcome back to some more The Great Ace Attorney Adventures. So last time we continued, we actually started the trial here, and it hasn't been turning out well, as you can see. Now we have our witnesses here, and things are still very confusing about what's actually going on. So anyway, let's start with the statements here. We gotta press all of them anyway. No time to change after work, you say. Are you also a member of the police, Mrs. Beat? Oh no, sadly not. It's a job for strapping young men only. Women, children, and the elderly can't even apply. Well, I think you can probably see why children and the elderly can't do the job, can't you? I think Rolly looks ever so handsome in his uniform. It suits you down down the ground, doesn't it, darling? Huh? Oh. What? I just finished my beat. Pat and I were heading back to the station. I was actually planning on getting change there. Is he talking in his sleep? This is creepy. Oh no, Rolly. I much prefer you in uniform. Sometimes I don't recognize you when I see you in plain clothes. Oh dear. That doesn't seem healthy. Kindly get here to the point. You were going for a meal after you had finished your beat for the day, correct? That's right, sir. Yes. Although I was fit to drop, to be honest, after spending the whole day on my feet. But policing is my life, sir. As long as I'm the proud owner of this, I'll serve my city and my queen to the end. What's that now? My warrant card, sir. Proof that I'm a London copper. It has the noble founding principles of the force written on it as a reminder to all us policemen of our sworn duty. To patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. Sir, and for such a noble cause, I cover 20 miles every single day without fail and without a grumble, because I know that the plodding on my boots is all Londoners need to hear to feel safe and secure. So fighting crime doesn't appear to come into it then. But sir, just on that one particular day, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. B puts up with a lot being married to a bobby like me. I want to show my dear wife how much I care. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. Oh, what a charming couple. Their young love is such a joy to behold. A little over the top, perhaps. And then, kind of describe what happened next. Anyway, two silhouettes appeared out of the fog on the pavement in front of us. I already read that. Two silhouettes. Actually, I'm trying to remember something. That's right. They were coming towards us, walking up Briar Road in the opposite direction. There was a rather plump figure followed by a scrawny, thin-looking man. It does sound exactly like the victim is pictured in this print, and like Mr. Natsume. Yes, unfortunately it does. And you were certain that at that time there was nobody else nearby. Oh yes, quite certain. It was dark, but there are streetlights on Briar Road, you see. There was nobody else around at all. Isn't that right, my darling? What? Oh yes, that's right. Of course, there was a light fog on the ground. Briar Road is dead straight, and you could see a fairly long way down the pavement. And then there's the street lighting as well. I didn't see any other pedestrians. Before sleep takes a firm hold, your answer, please, Mr. Beat. Wait, before sleep takes a firm hold, your answer, please, Mr. Beat. Are you quite sure of what you just said? Yes, sir. As a copper who spent all day every day keeping watch on the streets, I'd swear to it, sir. I'm as sure as my love for Patricia is true. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. They're still maintaining there was no one else around other than the victim and the attacker. It's starting to seem like that must be how it really happened. It's beginning to seem like there's nowhere to run. Well, that didn't stop Mr. Natsume, did it? You fled the scene all too convincingly. Thank you. I believe we have a reasonably clear idea of the situation just before the incident now. What happened in the crucial moments that followed? Scattered something. What do you mean by that? Oh well, I couldn't quite make out what it was at the time. But then when we got closer, we realized what it was. Didn't we, darling? Oh, I'm still here. What? Oh, yes, that's right. With some old books. I see, old books. Huh. Yes, sir. The culprit had dropped a number of them, all around where the victim lay on the pavement. Indeed, as clearly pictured in this photographic print. That rotten Japanese man did that when he did the deed. Let's not forget that it remains to be established that the defendant was indeed the attacker. Well, we saw him. It was the man in the dock, without question. Saw the mustache, the hunchback, the cat-like eyes, the top mouth, the snub nose, everything. Any more insults you want to throw in? That's right. He looked down at that poor defenseless woman with those terrifying, intense eyes, and then suddenly threw his books onto the pavement and ran away. I see. This is tough. They seem as though they're telling the truth here. May I remind the court that this unambiguous testimony comes from a policeman and his wife. Now please, continue. Yes, sir! Oh. Was it your husband who went to fetch help? No, I went. I may not be a police officer myself, but I'm the proud wife of one after all. Isn't that right, my darling? What? Oh yes, that's right. I asked Miss Beat to go. I was off duty, Mrs. Beat to go. I was off duty by that point. But Bobby's never truly off duty, of course, so I felt obliged to stay and guard the scene. Very laudable, Mr. Beat. Preserving the scene of a crime is a task of considerable importance. That's why I sent Patricia, you see. I told her where to find the right police box. Forgive my ignorance, but what do you mean exactly by the right police box? Depends on a crime's location, you see, as to who deals with it. Where the woman was stabbed wasn't actually on my beat. So I told Patricia the way to the police box for the beat the incident fell under, so she could go and report it. Ran there as quickly as I could, and asked for help from the Bobby on duty. There's nothing more potent than a young couple in love working together, you know. And thanks to your swift response, the case was quickly resolved. The actions of two model citizens. Oh, please, you're making us blush, isn't he, darling? Yeah, fucking. Unless she's like snapping his neck every time. Yes, sir. What Patricia said, sir. Let's move on, shall we? But surely you wouldn't have been able to see his face by the light of the gas street lamps, would you? We absolutely could. Us Londoners have an exceptional eyesight, I'll have you know. Right. The light from the street lamps was more than enough. And my husband already told you that the fog was only light, didn't he? Yes, and what of the fog? We're famous for it across the globe, I believe. But it's an absolute menace to those of us who have to live with it, of course. Oh, it is, and when it's thick, you can't even see the hand at the end of your own arm. Yes, alright, I take your point. Now, could you stop shaking your husband about? The constant fog makes our eyes very sharp, you see. That's why we can tell you for sure and certain that it was that little Japanese man we saw. Can't we, darling? What? Ah, yes. It was the accused, and no mistake. The mustache, the hunchback, the cat-like eyes, the top mouth, the snub nose. Unmistakable, sir. As far as this couple's testimony is concerned, there can't be any question. It was Soseki-san they saw running away from the scene of the crime. So that's it, is it? That's their entire testimony? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, I hate to admit it, but on hearing the testimony, it really does seem as though Mr. and Mrs. Beat saw what they saw. Saw what they saw. Saw what they say they saw. Ugh. Saw what they say they saw. Saw what they say they saw. Saw what they say they saw. Okay, it's not a tongue twister like I thought it would be. Mr. Natsumi ran away from the scene on Briar Road that day. Yes, I feel the same. So if that's true, where does it leave us? The members of the jury are sure to call for a guilty verdict after this testimony. Oh no, then what do we do? If Cosmo-sama were here... What are you trying to say? I think he would try to find a contradiction somewhere else within their testimony. What do you mean, somewhere else? Your statement about seeing Mr. Natsumi is unequivocal. Calling that into question won't help. But if you can identify some other part of their testimony which appears to contradict the facts, we might be able to discredit them, to make the jury doubt if the pair's memory of the day is accurate. Oh, right. But simply, we must focus on finding a discrepancy in these statements somewhere. If we don't, I'm afraid the trial may reach an early and unfavorable conclusion. Why do I always seem to be so up against it? Mr. Lawyer, sir, can I ask you something? Oh, yes, of course. What is it? Well, you keep asking us all these questions about everything we've told you, so... Seems like you don't believe our testimony. Is that right? Is it? Well, out with it. What? No. Oh no, it's really not that at all. My husband's a policeman, remember? And I know what I saw. I remember every last detail. Everything. Like... Oh, I know. What about the books the man dropped? I could tell you the names of every single one I could. Every single one. And you dare to question how reliable my testimony is? That will do, Mrs. Beat. No, it won't do at all. A Japanese lawyer has no idea what I'm capable of. Even if I decide to forgive him for insulting us, don't think for a minute that Rolly will. It really didn't mean to cause offense. Please put your husband's fist down. Perhaps you would like the opportunity to supplement your testimony, Mrs. Beat. Might that appease you? Oh, thank you, my lord. That would settle things nicely. Wouldn't it, darling? Yeah. Man, well, you have to present something there, but still. Yes, we know that there were books dropped at the scene of the crime, as you say. That was purchased by the accused at the nearby second-hand bookshop on the day in question. After I'd been to the police box for help, I decided to have a good look over the area for good measure. I'm a private policeman's wife, after all. I did it for Rolly. And what was your husband doing at the time? Oh, he was lying face down in the snow, getting some well-deserved rest. He works ever so hard, you know, ever so hard. Don't you know? Don't you, my darling? Interesting way of guarding the scene of the crime. Well, Mrs. Beat, seeing as if you regaled the court with tales of your powers of recollection, would you be so kind as to recount the titles of the books you observed at the scene? I'd be happy to. Now, are you all listening? There was a picture of Monsieur somebody or other, and oh, what's it yearnings? And there was a meal for someone, and the last was definitely the thingaby something. You see? Yes, I see there are one or two holes in your memory. Oh well, they were along those lines, I'm quite sure. There were indeed books found at the scene with titles along those lines, as you put it. Well, what did I tell you? So I think it's very mean the way you've been implying that my testimony can't be trusted. Don't you agree, darling? Anyone who sets my Patricia will have to answer to... will have me to answer to. Terrifying. Terrifying. Yes, she really is. I mean, he just pulled out a fucking gun on you. So yeah, just gonna repeat what it say there. Yeah, we already know. Just go all the way to the end here. So you're saying that there were 4 books. That's right, I remember all of them. Oh yeah, she's just gonna repeat that thing. The picture of Monsieur somebody. What's it yearnings? A meal for someone, and the thing of me something. I'm sorry, Mrs. Beat, but there is a fundamental flaw in that statement of yours. Oh no, what flaw? Simply that at the scene of the crime, there were only 3 books, not 4. What? Have a good look at this photographic print of the scene of the crime. As you can clearly see, there are only 3 books. But no, that can't be. I saw them. Oh, I know what it is. Yes, you can't fool me. Sorry. It's that big old lump of a dead body. The lady so large her corpse is blocking the view of the fourth book, that's all. Let's at least try to remember that the poor woman isn't dead, even if we're insulting her size. I'm sorry, Mrs. Beat. But Mr. Natsume could not possibly have dropped the 4 books you describe. Why not? Fascinating. And from your assured tone, something you can readily substantiate with evidence, I presume. Evidence. Counsel, you will present evidence to substantiate your claim or withdraw it. What proof do you have that the accused did not drop 4 books? The evidence is right here, in the form of this bookshop receipt. From your books? Yes, this receipt details Mr. Natsume's purchases that day. But as you can see, only 3 books are listed. Only 3 books are listed. No. Therefore, Mr. Natsume would have only dropped 3 books to the scene of the crime. Which means that your powers of observation, madam, cannot be relied upon. Grr. So it cannot be denied that though you can say that though you say it was the defendant you saw, you could very well be mistaken. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! No! I'm not doing a shrill scream. It's plainly evident that it is your powers of deduction that cannot be relied upon, my learned Nipponese friend. What? What cannot be denied is that these 2 witnesses saw the accused running from the scene, a fact that you know very well you have no hope of disproving. Ah. So you've striven to avert attention from that by dint of some inconsequential discrepancies. Would that be fair? Ugh, he sees right through me. But your plan is somewhat recoil against you. What are you talking about? It's quite simple. Let me explain with a toast. To the policeman's wife, and her entirely accurate testimony, in every respect. Oh. You see, the matter is not up for debate. At the scene on Briar Road, a total of 4 books were most definitely found. But what about the photographic print? Only shows 3 books. Quite right, only 3 can be seen in that print. That print? You mean to say? Allow me to present another, one that shows the victim's hand. I don't believe it. It's the 4th book. As you will observe, the 4th book was hidden from view in the original print by the victim's torso. No. No! Order! Order! There, you see? You see? Look at that. Look, look, look! Yes. It's just like I said. Isn't it, my darling? Yes, sir. Patricia's always right, sir. Let us study the receipt for the books purchased by the accused on the day in question. Mrs. Beats, the titles once again, if you please. Oh yes, of course. The picture of Monsieur somebody or other. Picture of Monsieur Lecoq. What's it? Yearnings. Canterbury Yearnings. A meal for someone. A meal for Gaborio. Rio. I don't know how you pronounce it. I don't know if it's a French name or not. Gaborio. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce it. As the court has just heard, the witness remembers the book titles flawlessly, save for a few minor details. Miss Beats' powers of recollection can only be described as exceptional. Did you hear that, Rolly? The gentleman paid me a compliment. Yes, sir. Flawless, sir. Patricia List, flawless. Well, but there are only 3 books on the receipts. Mrs. Beat mentioned 4. There's nothing surprising about that. Clearly the 4th book is that which is shown in this photographic print. I'm sorry, counsel, but does that not seem odd? Why should the 4th book be omitted from the receipt? It's not odd at all, my lord. As the photograph clearly shows, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, it belongs to the victim. The victim was holding her own book? I wonder, what became of that fourth book? Obviously, it wasn't overlooked by the investigating officers at Scotland Yard. I have it here as evidence. We will submit that and the aforementioned photographic print to the court, please, counsel. My pleasure, my lord. There you go. Got the new evidence there. The prosecution rests. I have nothing further to add. What? You seem surprised, my learned friend, but your persistence until now has been in vain. Entertaining, yes, but futile. The spurious longer route to the accused lodgings that you tried to establish in your summation examination and the attempted discrediting of the witness's powers of recollection in your cross-examination. Futile? I walked right into this, didn't I? You see, everything we said is true. Isn't that right, my darling? Yes, Pat. Marry me, Pat. So, perhaps the ladies and gentlemen of the jury would like to reconsider their positions. Should the court waste any more time on this Nipponese travesty? Or is the decision you have to make all too apparent already? I'm just checking something here. You have heard all of the witnesses and seen all of the evidence. This trial has run its course. Miss Naruhodo, I'm afraid we're in a terribly precarious position. I know, but if I fight back in the wrong way now, it could very well just make matters worse. Think, Ryunosuke, think. What do you do now? Think, Ryunosuke! Think, Ryunosuke! I'm not done yet. No, my learned friend. It's over. That last cross-examination was your final chance to establish a credible defense, and you failed. The die has been cast. There is no more room for debate. Well, it might be over as far as you're concerned, bud, but... I can't think of what to say. If I may, Lord Van Zeeks. It seems somewhat poor to close down the debate at this point. Your insignificant little Eastern Isle must be a lawless hole indeed. For a lowly judicial assistant to have the audacity to intervene at a moment like this. Oh. I am, to my shame, still a very inexperienced lawyer. So you will have to forgive me, but I consider my assistant's advice essential and her opinions invaluable. Mr. Naruhodo. One of this land's great guiding principles is tolerance, so the court will hear you, madam. Go ahead, Miss Suzuto, please. Very well. Pray, what insight can you give us? What have we all overlooked in this matter that you see fit to pursue it further? Well, the court has been presented with new evidence, but only after the last cross-examination finished. I see. And you believe that this new evidence warrants further examination, do you? Mr. Naruhodo, what do you think? It's just possible that this new evidence might be the decisive proof we've been waiting for. The judge is sure to ask the members of the jury to announce their leanings in a moment. And of course, he's sure to ask you to explain what the crucial piece of evidence is and why. So we must take this opportunity to examine the newly presented evidence as thoroughly as possible. Yes, I understand, and thank you, Miss Suzuto. This is it. Susato-san has managed to win us one last chance here. I can't let it go to waste. The defense wishes to present evidence, my lord. Very well. The defense may present one more further piece of evidence. Evidence that apparently offers a profound insight into this case, and has hitherto been overlooked. To go here and looky. Oh, look at this. This book has been badly burnt. You're right. This book has been badly burned. Yeah, you're right. You never be able to read it in the state, especially not the latter pages. What a terrible waste. Judging from the scorched edges of the paper, I think the damage must have occurred very recently. A book recently damaged by fire. Why does that seem to... Sorry. Why does it seem to raise a red flag with me? The evidence in question is what we see from the newly presented photographic prints of the crime scene. The fourth book, found in the victim's hand. We have already discussed the fourth book at length. Other than it being in the victim's grasp at the time of the incident, no significance has been attached to it. Pursuing the matter further would be a flagrant waste of the court's time, as you well know. Yes, I'm afraid, counsel, I must concur with the prosecution on this matter. When I afforded you this opportunity, you led the court to believe that the evidence in question contained a hitherto undiscovered clue. I must insist that you elaborate to counsel. You will identify this clue at once. Do I make myself clear? Oh, yes, my lord. It's, Miss Naruhodo, I believe the prosecution is trying to avoid a thorough examination of the evidence. Which means you may very well be on the right track. Yes, I think you might be right. So, counsel, precisely where is the vital clue to this case which this fourth book conceals? I would ask the court to observe the back of the book in question. The back? What do you... Good gracious! It's been burnt to a crisp! So we have to ask ourselves, why was the victim clutching what is clearly an unreadable book? It is undeniable and an extremely unnatural thing for her to have been doing. Unnatural, you say? And what of it, my Nipponese friend? Oh. Were to concede the point, if it bears no relation to the case, there is nothing to discuss. So, should you wish to assert that this fire damage is some veiled clue as to what had happened, to what happened that day, pray do enlighten us all. What truth does this charred book hide? Charred book. There is just one possibility here, which I can't quite bring myself to rule out. It's an outside chance, certainly, but worth a try. Alright, I'll explain my theory. Don't keep us waiting any longer then, counsel. Explain this theory of yours. What are you suggesting that you can ascertain from the fire damage the story tome has suffered? My lord, the burn on the back of this book reveals a startling truth about the book's owner. I beg your pardon, but you already know who the book belongs to. The victim was gripping it in her hand as she fell to the floor after all. It's obviously hers. The question of how this book came to be in the victim's hand is yet to be answered. However, as to the questions of who the book really belongs to, and where it originated, the defense has very credible answers. Good gracious, how can you possibly? Very well, I'll play along with this futile attempt to delay your inevitable demise. But do remember, members of the jury may well burn you if your little gamble goes awry. Counsel, the defense's response here is very likely to influence the final outcome of this trial. So tell the court, who do you claim is the owner of this burnt book? And yep, they are coming into play now. The answer is that the book belongs to the couple who own the house where the defendant has his lodgings. A certain Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb. The landlords? Whether this is some extraordinary coincidence or some kind of fate at work, I don't know, but... Of all the people in London, one of the 6 chosen for jury duty in this courtroom today is none other than Mrs. Garadeb herself. Oh my goodness, me? I think you must be mistaken, sir. I'm not Mr. Garadeb's wife. I'm his maid. Things would be so much easier if you would just drop the pretense. Alright then, how about a simple question for you? Have you ever seen this book in Mr. Garadeb's house? I would never presume to know all of the books he keeps, sir. This is outlandish behavior. This woman is the accused landlady, you say? You implicate this hard-working member of the public. You besmirch her without a shred of evidence. Your actions are unforgivable. This is not mere conjecture. The defense happens to know that on the day in question, at almost exactly the same time as the victim was stabbed on the pavement below, another incident was taking place in the room on the top floor of Mr. and Mrs. Garrett's house. Good lord, what sort of incident, counsel? A fire, my lord. Afraid to say it was. Happened in the blink of an eye, you know. Whole place filled with smoke. Couldn't see a bally thing. Didn't take long for the fire to spread, of course. Bally furniture started going up as well. Worst of it is, I lost my favorite, book called The Lion's Pride. The Lion's Pride. Look at that fucking face of his. So fucking evil looking. By Jove, the very same title that's the subject of this debate. Oh dear me. This is risible. All you've told the court is that a book by the same name was involved in a fire. In which case, it would be reasonable to assume that it was burnt to ashes. Entirely unreasonable to infer that it magically removed itself to the scene of the crime. Perhaps it would make more sense if I told you that the cause of the fire was marital discord. Without going into the details, it appears that Mrs. Garrett was considerably enraged. Apparently, she continued to attack Mr. Garrett even amid the flames. Oh, how awful. I can't even imagine being so horrid to the one you love. Can you, Rolly? Absolutely not, sir. My Patricia would never raise a finger against me, sir. I read all my favorite old novels in that case, but as soon as the fire got hold of them, that was it. Whoosh! Up in smoke. The wife started hurling things at me. There was I, back up against the window, under heavy enemy fire. Incendiary books incoming 10 to the dozen. The man had his back up against the window, and he had burning books thrown at him. Goodness gracious, are you suggesting that the book was thrown through a window and landed coincidentally at the scene of the crime? No. A thorough investigation of the surrounding area was conducted the very evening of the incident. There was no report of the Garrett's window pane being broken. It's quite true. We also saw no sign of broken glass when we visited the Garrett household. But is it not conceivable that the window was open at the time and... Not even remotely. Let's not forget the season and the chilling weather that accompanies it. No Londoner would ever leave a window open in the middle of winter. Huh. Does the defense postulate this scenario in all seriousness, counsel? Do you earnestly claim that the book found at the scene was a flaming projectile thrown by Mr. Garrett's wife? I believe it's a possibility, my lord. That's quite enough. Or, I don't know. Is it Joan or... I forgot. That's quite enough. Well, I hope that everyone can see you for what you are now, you little foreign trickster. You call yourself a lawyer, but you're just a coward. A mean coward. Really? Claiming there are little tips set the whole neighborhood alight, honestly. Implying that I'm merely posing as a maid for appearance's sake. How could you? It's nothing to do with this beastly case, not any of it. All you've done is sully our family name. No, I assure you, that was never my intention. Dragging an upstanding citizen's name through the mud simply to divert attention from your failing defense. I should box your ears, that's what I should do. It's utterly unforgivable. Too right. Here we go. How long have we sat here now, listening to this nippity spouting out his fancy foreign theories? But think about it. At the end of the day, the only person who could have possibly stabbed the victim is that little hunchback with the mustache, and he ran away from the scene too. I do declare you're right. It's true. Yes, what did I tell you? Makes sense to me. Sorry. What's that? What's that? I fucking forgot his voice already. Well, it would appear that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury are once again in full agreement. What is your position, Lord Van Zieks? In truth, my lord, I feel these have been unnecessarily protracted proceedings. But then, one must always exercise patience in order to save the best vintage. No, wait. The mystery of the fourth book still hasn't been... Oh, yeah. If books are your predilection, my learned friend, study them on your own time. What? No for gift of discourtesy this time? In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will now state your individual decisions regarding the defendant's culpability for the court to hear. And again. Guilty. Thank you for that unambiguous response. That's twice now, it's over. Mr. Naruto, don't give up. Mr. Sato, have you forgotten? The battle isn't over yet. You're right, you're not suggesting. Of course, the defense has the right to another summation examination at this point. You could still convince jurors to change their minds. You have one more chance. My lord, the defense asks to exercise its right to a summation examination. Humph. You believe you still have tricks up your sleeve? I don't intend to trick anybody. I intend to uncover the truth. This is no time to be downcast. As long as there's a chance, I have to stay strong and determined. I got off there, but it's only been 30 minutes, so that's fine. We'll at least press all this. We'll at least, like, you know, go through that, continue this. I've considered the defense's counsel request for further submission examination of the jury, and I have determined that the court must uphold the defense's judicial right to this procedure. So, counsel, you will now proceed with your second summation examination. I presume the jury is ready, Mr. Foreman. We are, my lord. Very good. In that case, I must ask each of you now to say clearly and concisely for the court the grounds on which you find the defendant guilty of this crime. The accused left behind evidence at the scene, didn't he? Those 3 books of his. There was some novel alternative explanation about how the victim was stabbed I might reconsider. Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, can it? Dear me, it was only a little book. Hardly life-threatening, even with a direct hit. Look, I just want to get this over with. If I don't bring home some pay tonight, I'll be in a tidy bit of trouble. Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago. Give me the sneezes. Yes, considerably more tangible arguments from all the members of the jury this time around, it seems. With one notable exception, of course. My learned student friend was unable to find the fault in the previous witness' testimony. Just checking something. So the court must accept the fact that it was indeed the accused seen fleeing from the scene, and moreover, no one else was even at the scene to commit the crime. To commit the crime. Well, if the eyewitnesses are correct, it would seem as if the conclusion is somewhat set in stone. I fail to see how it can be argued any other way. That means, I'm afraid, that during the summation examination, it's essential that you establish some other tangible explanation for the what? But how? What would even constitute a tangible explanation here? Isn't it obvious? Who stabbed the woman, and how? Those 2 details are all you need provide. Simply give us a name and a method by which the attack was conducted. There I was thinking this might be hard. But Mr. Naruto, you have to do it, otherwise this really will be where the trial ends. Ugh, no pressure then. That's quite enough preamble. Proceed with the summation examination, please. I presume you are prepared, Counsel. Oh yes, my lord. Alright, Ryunosuke, focus your mind now. Double slap. Clearly, the key to the summation examination is going to be juror number 4, the maid. Or should I say Mrs. Gerdev. We have a book that disappeared from the Gerdev's house on the evening of the incident, and the 4th book found in the victim's hand. There must be a way to link the two. Yes, that's what we have to find, using every technique I've learned in my short career so far, whatever it takes. Don't forget to keep an eye on Mrs. Gerdev and how she reacts, even to things other people say. But as we now know, there were 4 books, not 3. Well, what difference does it make? There is every possibility that the 4th book belongs to the defendant's landlord. Yes, that's the part I have a problem with. Just checking something again. Sorry. Well, at the point the woman was stabbed, this landlord fellow was at home, wasn't he? Throwing a fire scrap with his wife or something, you said. That's not exactly how I put it, no. Well, anyway, point is, the fellow and his wife were somewhere else when it happened. I think that's what you call a strong alibi. So, couldn't have been the landlord who did it, which only leaves the Nipponese fella. Honestly, I can't see what all this palaver is about. It's a done deal, isn't it? I suppose it is, since I have nothing witty left to say. So, you might be willing to change your decision, you mean? Oh my, such delight on your face. I'm afraid I shan't be swayed by emotion. Despite what you may think of me, I'm a very modern, metropolitan, and rational woman. That's great. If one reads the morning papers, it's all forgotten by tea time, isn't it? So why read them in the first place? You see, modern, metropolitan, and rational thinking, wouldn't you say? And not at all extreme. As I see it, an overwhelmingly suspicious Japanese man has been implicated by overwhelmingly strong testimony. So despite 1 or 2 minor puzzlements, I do declare that the man is overwhelmingly guilty. Modern, metropolitan, and rational logic, wouldn't you say? Overwhelmingly. But us modern gals are always delighted to embrace new fads, you know. So I'd be only too happy to consider a new, exciting theory. An exciting new theory, if you can come up with one. I'd be happy to do that too, if only I could. Let's do our very best not to disappoint the modern and metropolitan young lady. Right. Glad you omitted irrational there. What about the possibility that the window was open? What about it? I mean, there's just no way it could have been. How can you be so sure? Prosecution fellow over there said it earlier, didn't he? Winters in London are no joke. You don't want to fight that sort of cold indoors. So no, that window wasn't open. Us Londoners like sitting by the fire and staying warm, see? But you couldn't categorically state that the window wasn't open, could you? It just wasn't. It couldn't have opened it. And what's the point in even having windows, huh? Counsel, you will kindly refrain from childish bickering. Sorry. Somehow I need to show there's an undeniable possibility that the window was open. Because this young man isn't going to budge it otherwise. But the little book was on fire at the time, was it not? The flames of love, I'll have you know. There's really no such thing as a loving incendiary bomb. Well, he brought it upon himself as willing with fire to betray a fiery love. Isn't it? Well, don't you agree? Well, any kind of betrayal is certainly a bad thing, yes. But I think the argument might have arisen out of your misunderstanding, Mrs. Gerdev. Never you mind that. The point is, we were just having a little jovial little dispute, nothing more. I don't want to have any more of these suggestions that it was anything whatsoever to do with this crime. Right, well, we'll see about that. But what about juror number 5? Doesn't seem to be turning a hair at Mrs. Gerdev for relentless onslaughts. Almost as though he's used to it. What a gentle soul he is. He's used to his wife doing that. You just want to get this over with. How can you sit there and say something like that? A fan's future is at stake here. Well, him and me both then, like I said before. What? Told you already. I'm a day laborer, aren't I? If I don't bring home some breadies with me tonight, you'll find me floating face down in the Thames tomorrow morning. What? You heard me. My missus isn't one to mess about. You know, she can be fierce, believe you me. Another shining example of meritable bliss, then. Situation like this cropped up the other day. It was, well, do you know, it's funny because I can't quite remember. Sorry? It's too frightening, that's the thing. Must have blocked it out. Helpful. Wonder if Mr. Beat will ever be dragged out into the Thames by his scarf. Don't even go there, Mr. Stowe. Must be some way to jog his memory about this. Does that have anything to do with your decision about the defendant's culpability in this case? Sorry, what's that? You'll have to speak up, lad. Could you tell us more about that fire? It was last winter. My grandchildren baked me a lovely cake on my birthday. It had 75 candles on the top, it did. What a sight to behold it was. You put candles on a cake? Was it some kind of devil worship? Of course not, it was an angel cake to celebrate my birthday, obviously. Seems it's the common custom here in Great Britain, Mr. Naruhodo. Anyway, I must roll my puff to blow them out. Only I must have blown wrong somehow. The flames didn't go out, but candles went flying all over the room. Furniture caught and everything went up. The whole place was filled with smoke. Definitely sounds like devil worship to me. And by the sneezes, I presume you mean a cold. How'd you catch a cold from a fire? What if you ask who it was? My grandchildren, bless them, threw water over me as they tried to put out the flames. Then because the room had filled up with smoke, of course, we had to open up all the windows to clear it. Windows. Biting winter air rushed over me like the devil dancing on my grave it did. Got a terrible cold from it. Put me in hospital. For a while, I won't forget that birthday in a hurry. I knew it was devil worship all along. Something about this old man's story is playing on my mind for some reason. We need to demonstrate who, apart from Mr. Natsume, could have attacked the young woman on the street. As well as how he or she could have done it. Yes, but once again, the jurors' statements are full of personal prejudice. A lot of them seem convinced they're right, even in the face of logical arguments to the contrary. I think you're going to need to pit them against each other to force them to accept an alternative explanation. Yes, I don't necessarily need to find contradictions between their assertions, just a connection that might do the trick. Alright, hang on. I gotta finish my water. Alright, I'll see what I can do. If anything stands out, I'll go in for a strike. That's the spirit. That's the spirit. So 3 and 6. These two jurors' statements clearly contradict one another. They do. How exactly, counsel? Don't point at me again. I told you it wasn't me. What's that you say? Speak up, lad. Speak up. Juror number 3. Do you see? Oh, me? See what, sir? Did you hear juror number 6's account of his birthday celebrations last year? Seems, despite being a Londoner, he once opened his windows in the middle of winter. Well, yes, of course, but it was because it was an emergency. I mean, obviously, if the room was filled with smoke from a fire, then you'd be mad not to open the... Oh! Exactly. On the day in question, at the time of the incident, there was a fire in the Garrideb household, and Mr. Garrideb had the following to say about it. The whole place filled with smoke. Oh, my hat! Juror number 4, do you have something to say about that? Mrs. Garrideb. Oh, dearie me! What is the meaning of this? How dare you imply that I'm hiding who I really am? It's imperative that you confirm something for the court. So please, it's time to drop the pretense now. Well, what is it? When the fire started in your house that day, did you or your husband open the window? What? I beg your pardon? What are you insinuating? The room would have been thick with smoke after the carpet and bookcase caught fire as they did. In a situation like that, it's inconceivable that you wouldn't have opened the window. What if we did? All right then. Yes, you're right. My husband was frantically trying to open the window. Why, it can't have been easy since I continued to give him a justly deserved book battering. Even though your house is on fire? Oh, you never stop throwing until the anger subsides. It would be terribly bad for the nerves to do otherwise. Of course, I should have realized. That's a significant step forward, Mr. Naruto. You've managed to establish that the window is open. We simply must have that added to Mrs. Garrett's formal testimony. Now we press. The fourth book found at the scene of the crime shows very obvious damage, signs of fire damage. And the title of the book is The Lion's Pride. The same title, in fact, as the book that Mr. Garrett told us he had been reading. Well, I really couldn't say. Wait, I just mentioned, yes, the window's open at the time. It's clean forgotten, but it's true. Yeah, there's the statement there. We'll see. On the day in question, did you or did you not throw at your husband the copy of The Lion's Pride that he's been reading? I did. It was the first thing I could lay my hands on, so I hurled it straight at him. Now you come to mention it, yes. I was rather enjoying reading it, you're right. Why did you not reveal this information to the court from the outset? Because I couldn't, you insolent little man. I didn't remember. At times like that, you pick up and throw whatever you can lay your hands on, as you well know. I barely noticed I was storing a book. What was the title of it? What is it, juror number 5? You know something? I remember what it was. The memory had blocked out. Ah. It was listening to what this granny was saying. Brought it all flooding back. Who are you calling a granny, you cheeky devil? I'm Mrs. Garrett, or the maid, I'll have you know. The man doesn't even flinch. Please tell me that's not because he's so used to being hit all the time. It was about 2 weeks ago now. I just got back home after work, like. Put my hand in my pocket for the wages I had just earned that day, and nearly died. There was a hole. Every last penny had dropped out. Oh dear, what was it? What a disaster. You haven't heard the half of it, boy. Oh? My wife was cutting up some chicken at the time. I could hardly get the words out, but I told her straight. I've lost a day's wages, love. Next thing I knew, the blade was whistling past my ear. Stuck into the wall next to me, it did. About 1 inch deep. No words, just terror. Could smell it then, you know. That god-awful stench of the Thames. Sure was gonna end up face down in the muddy banks that night, I can tell you. I could tell you. Now, that's a real disaster, isn't it? I'll never use the word lightly again. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. When women lose their rag, they'll throw anything at you. Knives, hatchets, hammers, you name it. Miss Naruto, you mustn't think that all women are so short-tempered and unrefined. No, I wasn't thinking that. Throwing household objects at people is, well, it's so uncivilized. At least attack with honor, using a bow or the like. What? Attack? Who are you going to attack? Never mind. Anyway, this man's words could be rather significant, I think. Alright, we'll come back to the bow and arrow thing later if I dare. I don't care about pressing it right now, it's basically just gonna repeat himself. Those two statements clearly have a deep, significant connection. Good grief, you mean that they don't contradict each other? Explain, counsel, at once. Juror number 2, do you think perhaps that this could be one such novel alternative? Oh my, whatever you mean. An alternative explanation as to how the victim was stabbed in the back. What are you talking about? We demonstrated that the fourth book, The Lion's Pride, that was found at the scene of the crime, originated in Mr. Garrett's room on the top floor of his house. Therefore, it's equally possible that some other object besides the book could have found its way from the Garrett household to the street below. Alright, what's that now? Sorry. After all, Mrs. Garrett could have thrown any number of different objects at her husband. Isn't that right, juror number 4? Oh, what are you insinuating now, you little beanpole? I've been beginning to think that ever since the true origins of this book came to light, perhaps she's had a feeling this might be what happened. Now you listen here, you Eastern Gala. As the foreman of this jury, I demand a straight answer. You give us this yarn about some other object making its way out of the house, but what? What is it? I'm really taking a big gamble here. That's a bold accusation to make, but I haven't any real evidence to back it up. But I'm certain that at the very least this warrants further investigation. Alright, Mr. Foreman, I'll try to explain the defense's theory. The other object that found its way from the Gerdev household to the scene of the crime was... Juror number 4, Mrs. Gerdev. What now? I must apologize in advance for this. But I need you to confirm something else for the court. This knife. Have you ever seen this knife before? Oh. Good Lord, Counsel, what on earth are you doing? Let's open those lodged into the victim's back, man. My lord, remember that when the victim was attacked, Mr. and Mrs. Gerdev were in the throes of an argument. Mrs. Gerdev was hurling anything she could at her husband, who had been backed up against the window, a window that had been opened to clear the smoke, and through which a book sailed to land at the crime scene. You can't seriously believe that the book was found in the victim's grasp. By saying that it flew out of the window and across the street to land neatly in her hand? Huh. Even my missus hasn't got a name like that. Yes, I admit there are many details we don't yet understand, but that's the point. That's precisely why we must not allow this trial to end. Not right now. Oh my. Ah. Mrs. Gerdev, your answer, please. Have you seen this knife before or not? Oh, ah! My lord, I wish to change my decision. I'm a woman of my word, after all. Thank you, madam. Yes, I agree. Certainly didn't see this coming, but I just don't think it would be right for this trial to come to an end now with so many unanswered questions. Mr. Foreman. I have to agree. Not that I think that Granny didn't mind. Yes, you know what? I'm not quite happy about this at the moment either. All together now, ladies and gents. And there you go. Back on track. We did it! Oh, congratulations, Miss Naruhodo. So as a result of the defense's summation examination, a number of jurors' leanings have changed. 2 jurors called guilty against 4 now calling innocent. Accordingly, the opinion of this court is divided. This trial will continue. Now then, Lord Van Zeeks, how does the prosecution wish to proceed? This trial is rapidly descending into a farce. Delicious. Delicious. Like a corked wine, the first few sips are bitter enough. But what follows is so repugnant, it's good for nothing save the gutter. If I may, Lord Van Zeeks, the defense has just put forward a credible alternative explanation for what happened. Credible? Is that your considered opinion, Mr. Foreman? The defense's argument is a joke to which I barely know how to respond, but let me start by insisting that you must all familiarize yourselves better with the relative positions of those places being discussed. What do you mean by that? What's his angle this time? It should already be more than apparent that between the crime scene and the Gerdev household runs a rather wide street, Briar Road. Which means that the distance from the Gerdev's house to the scene is some, 15 yards. Let me see, 15 yards. That's around 14 meters. 14 meters? Oh, that's a little farther than I'd imagined. And as you ladies and gentlemen of the jury rightly notice, having portentous significance. Portentous. I don't know how you pronounce that word. Whatever, I'm not looking up another word. The 4th book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, the smoldering book, wantonly hurled by the lady of the house, traveled some 15 yards, to land on the opposite side of the road, nearly between the collapsed victim's fingers and thumb. Is that your final conclusion, my learned and deluded friend? And did the jackknife follow a near identical trajectory to plunge into the middle of the victim's back? This fantasy is somewhat stretching the notion of having a bad day for the victim, I think. Even those pathetic serialized detective stories have more believable plots. Ah! There's nothing I can say to that. That prosecutor loves the sound of his own voice. Miss Suzato, serialized detective stories are pathetic, are they? How dare he? Maybe let's pick our battles here. My lord, might I be allowed to speak? As judicial assistant, you may speak for the defense, yes. Go ahead. The prosecution may consider the idea of fantasy, but what the defense has postulated was believable enough to persuade the jury to change its leaning, and as such, the court has the duty to explore this alternative explanation as thoroughly as possible. To that end, juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garrideb, must be called to testify and submit to cross-examination. Saints alive! Cross-examination of a juror? Order, order, order! Well, this is highly irregular. It is unprecedented for a member of the jury to be summoned to the witness stand. Music stops and he says, and unnecessary. Lord Van Zeeks? There are already witnesses in the stand whose testimony the defense may further cross-examine. If my learned friend's farcical theory has any truth in it, then both a burning book and a jackknife must have flown through the sky before this couple's eyes. We must assume they would be able to testify accordingly. What say you, witnesses? Yes, sir. Constable Rolly Beat. Reporting for duty, sir. Well, good morning, officer. Sorry for dozing until now, sir. I haven't slept for a month on account of a villain who's appeared on my beat, sir. Oh, they are so heroic, these London bobbies. Patricia, my darling, I've been neglecting you, but no more. Oh, Rolly, my hero, you make me swoon. Very well, I hereby reject the defense's request. Oh. And order the witnesses in the stand to testify again. State forthwith before the court any details pertaining to the defense's alternative explanation of events. Yes, sir! This case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb, but believe me, a London Bobby is good for his ward. You see, sir, the windows on the top floor of the Miss Garrideb house are top hinged casements. Obviously, if anything had been thrown out of the window, we would have seen it. I did leave the scene to go and fetch help, while my trusty Rolly was there to make sure nothing was disturbed. I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir. Yeah, well, this is quite startling. Top hinged casement windows. That detail was not in the police report, Constable. Oh, yes, I'm sorry about that. I must have been a little drowsy. You cannot excuse your sins with drowsiness every time, Constable. No, sir. I'm sorry, but what exactly is a top hinge casement window? And you. You cannot excuse your ignorance with such trite remarks, my learned friend. Of course, sorry. I found it, Miss Naruhodo. Cast your mind back to the windows in Mr. and Miss Garrideb's room. Alright, I'll try. So the windows open in order to allow air to circulate inside the house. But as it's a top hinged casement window, it swings open along the upper edge, you see. I'm glad you've rectified your ignorance. A casement window's most prominent feature is its stay, a metal bar which prevents the window from being opened beyond a certain amount. It prevents it opening? This is all news to me. Absolutely correct, sir. In other words, if a book or knife were to have been thrown through the open window, it would have clattered against the pane and fallen straight down to the pavement below. No. You see the problem then? Good. Your education in Windows is complete. There was never any possibility of either the book or the knife traveling 15 yards over the road. That is, unless the window pane had been shattered, something we've discounted already. That can't be! Motherfucker. Did you see that road? That young Japanese man just collapsed in agony. Oh yes, my darling, I saw it. I saw he crumbled before me. Oh, Rolly, you're so strong. How is this happening? I haven't even started the cross-examination yet, and already my argument's been destroyed. Counsel, if you could drag yourself upright again, the court awaits your cross-examination. My lord. Oh good, another desperate situation. Yeah, I got a cross-examination here. But we're gonna end it off here because it's an hour long, and we're almost done with this trial. Should be another hour-long episode for this next part. So in any case, we're starting to see the case unravel a lot more, and we see how fucking weird this theory of ours is. But that's all we have to go off of. So we got to see if it's gonna end up being true or not. So yeah, next time on the Great Ace Attorney Adventures, we're gonna be finishing off this case and seeing how the fuck this ends. See you guys then. Take care.